Hey guys, welcome back. We are taking notes obviously on the distance and midpoint formulas today. So I wanted to just kind of save some time and have this written out already. Again, don't forget to put the date right in your notes. The title of the notes is Distant and Midpoint Formulas, and we're going to talk about the distance formula first. We're only going to do one example of each because they're pretty straightforward, just plugging in numbers and whatnot, okay? So here we have the definition. So if I'm given 2 points, right, the end points of a line segment, I'm given those two endpoints, x1, y1, and x2, y2, I can find the distance between those 2 points by using this distance formula, where I do x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, and then I take the square root of the whole thing. So if you need to pause the video to get all this written down, please do so, but we're going to move on to an example of how this works, okay? And I'm probably going to move this down so we get more space. Okay. So our example is find the length of AB. Notice it doesn't say find the distance of AB. More often than not, I feel like they use the term length. So you just have to know that that means just find the distance, okay? All right, how long is that line segment? Find the distance from end to end. And then more specifically, give an exact answer. An exact answer. And a decimal approximation. I'm going to abbreviate approximation so I don't have to write the whole thing. And then we're going to round it. So rounded to 3 decimal places. Rounded to 3 decimal places. Okay, so the little blank graphs that you guys got in class, right? We're going to glue one of those in right here. Right, so this is a blank graph, right? So glue that in right there. And then we're going to do the work for this, okay? So I'm going to actually switch over. Here's my blank graph. And what we're going to do is, oh good, it's not letting me write on it. Why not? Why not? Okay, well, it's not letting me write on it. That's okay. We can recover, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw it by hand, okay? But just know that you're drawing on it on that blank graph that you guys got in class. Okay. This is not going to be pretty. I will do the best I can. Okay, my first point is going to be, over here at, and I'm just going to estimate, okay, at -3, 4. -3, 4, and that's point A. And then my point B is going to be over here, and that's the 0.5, 2. Okay. And that's already on your graph, so hopefully that makes sense on how we got that, right? Because that line is already on your graph. So, right, and then the line is connected. Okay, that was a lot better than I thought I was going to do. Okay, so here's the line AB. This point is -3, 4. This point is 5, 2. It doesn't matter which ones are your x1s and y1s, but I am going to rewrite the distance formula here just because I had to erase it up above. Okay, so this is sorry, blah, blah, blah. This is x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay? And I'm just going to start plugging things in. Again, it doesn't matter which one is your x1 or your x2, as long as you stay consistent. Okay, so I'm just going to call this one the ones, and I'm going to call this one the twos, just for fun. Okay, so my x2 is 5 minus my x1 is negative 3. And so again, a double negative, that's okay. And then my y2 is 2 minus my y1 is 4. And I'm just going to continue to simplify. Okay, so 5 plus 3 is 8. So this becomes 8 squared plus, and then 2 minus 4 is negative 2 squared. Keep going. 8 squared is 64. Negative 2 squared is 4. So I get the square root of 68. Now, great, I found it, right? And it says give an exact answer and a decimal approximation. So something that we have to note is that exact answers usually have a radical in them, right? That square root, okay? So they usually have that square root in them. However, I have to check can I simplify my square root? It's starting to get jumpy on me. So let's review how to simplify a square root. So I'm going to write the square root of 68. Okay. And I want two numbers that multiply to 68. So in this case, we can say 2 and 34. Right? 2 times 34 is 68. 2 doesn't break down anymore. 34 does break down into 2 and 17. And then 17 doesn't break down anymore because it's a prime number. Okay, and then since I have a square root, right, the index here is a 2, I'm looking for pairs. So here's a pair of numbers, right? So one of those comes out. And then whatever number's left over that I didn't use, in this case it's 17, that stays on the inside. So this right here is my exact answer, 2 square root of 17. So exact, here, I'm trying to conserve space here. Let's do it over here. Okay, so my exact answer is 2 square root of 17. Okay. Now I want my approximate answer, right? My decimal approximation. And all I'm going to do now is just enter what I got into the calculator. So I'm just I can do 2 root 17, or I can just do square root of 68 and enter it into my calculator. And I want to round to 3 decimal places. So check your work, enter this into your calculator. You should get 8.246. If you round correctly and all that fun stuff, you get 8.246. So here are my 2 answers. And that's it. Okay, so our exact answer has the radical in it, right, the square root. And our approximate answer, I've just plugged it into the calculator. So all through here on the distance formula, this is all stuff you can do, right? You can add, subtract numbers. You can take the square of numbers. You can add the numbers together. You can take the square root. These are all things that you know how to do. So that's the only example we're going to do on distance formula. So if you have a question on it or you get stuck, just make sure you reach out so I can help you. Okay, we're going to look at midpoint formula now. Okay, the midpoint formula. Okay, so the first thing is let's define what is the midpoint. I feel pretty confident you guys probably know that, but just in case. Okay, so it's the point, right? So by a point, we mean an XY coordinate, right? On a line that is equidistant, big word, okay, equidistant to the endpoints of the line. Okay, so it's a point right smack dab in the middle. Okay, so it has to be on the line, and then it's equidistant from the ends of the line. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to define the midpoint formula and talk about how do we get the midpoint. Okay, so here is the midpoint formula. So if I have an x1, y1, and an x2, y2, and those are my midpoint, or those are my endpoints, okay? The midpoint, we label it xm, comma ym, where the m stands for midpoint. And the way that you find the x coordinate is you take your x1 and your x2, so your two x values, you add them together, divide by 2. Then you take your two y values, y1 and y2, add them together, divide by 2. That's it. Okay, so midpoint tends to be pretty easy to find, right? I just add my two x's together, divide by 2, and then add my two y's together and divide by 2. And that's how we find the midpoint. So let's do another example, or not another example, but, well, it is another example, but it's our only example on midpoint. Okay, and the example is find the midpoint of A, B. And again, we're going to glue in, right, that graph. Little guy, glue in the graph. And I'm just going to have to draw it because apparently I can't draw the graph, or I can't write on that other page. So here's my graph. Remember that point A is at the point -3, 4. And then point B is at the point 5, 2. And there's my line. Okay, and I want to find the midpoint. What's the exact middle of this line? Okay, so I need to find my xm, and I need to find my ym, but let's just start with xm. This means I'm going to take my two x coordinates and divide by 2. Right, so my first x is -3, my second x is 5, and I'm going to divide by 2. And I get 2 over 2, which is 1. So the x coordinate of my midpoint is 1. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my y's, right? So I take my y1, add my y2, divide by 2. Okay, so my first y is 4. My second y is 2, divide by 2. And I get 6 over 2, which is 3. So my y coordinate of the midpoint is 3. So the midpoint here is the point 1, 3. 1, 3, somewhere in there, right? This is the midpoint. And that's it. So people tend to find, I think most students really enjoy finding the midpoint because it's pretty quick and easy, right? You just add the two x's together, divide by 2, add the two y's together, divide by 2. So you guys do have some practice on this on Classroom. So if you need help or if you have any questions, make sure that you reach out, and I'm happy to go over anything that you need.